Thank you. Thanks. I appreciate the time. I really appreciate the invite. You might be wondering, how did a chief commercial officer sneak into a chief data officer the information quality type of presentation? And the answer to that is my prior role was as the chief data officer for BOLTTECH. And I moved into this commercial role in January of this year. So hopefully today I'll have an opportunity to share with you a bit about the perspectives on how we've built a program to create artificial intelligence that helps our business out, and what are some of the takeaways that I think you can bring to other industries that really have nothing to do with insurance. But I'll start by describing BOLTTECH first, because probably many of the people in this room aren't very familiar with BOLTTECH. We're a Singaporean-based insurer tech company, which means we sit at the intersection of insurance and technology. And we are proud to be headquartered here. I've been at BOLTTECH for quite some time, since the beginning, but let me just walk through a little bit about what it is that we do. And fundamentally, BOLTTECH is around connecting people with more ways to protect the things they value. And we do that by connecting insurance companies with large corporates to allow those large corporates to sell insurance to their end customers. So imagine that you walk into a bank and you get a loan for your home, and the bank pulls up a list of home insurance products that you could buy for that home, talks to you about the needs that you might have in the home insurance space, and you select a program and purchase the home insurance there inside the bank. We are a technology platform that enables that journey. So that's what BOLTTECH has done and what we've done since 2020. I don't want to spend too much time in terms of, what is BOLTTECH. This isn't a sales pitch. Most of you will not need to know what BOLTTECH is really ever, because we don't actually operate as a consumer brand. We operate as a business-to-business brand. So we enable businesses to operate. And hopefully, if your business is thinking about selling insurance to your customers, then you think of us. But otherwise, you don't really need to know about us. So I'm just going to skip through this, because I want to really spend more time on what we call our AI factory. So the AI factory, and the way I think about that, is that it is the way in which we have created the systems, the internal corporate infrastructure, to build a lot of AIs that are going to be useful for our organization. And I'm going to walk you through some of the layers of that factory, from the foundational ground floor of ethics that we build into every single AI that we create, and going through the different layers and the different stories of the factory to sort of explain how that's gone, and then walk through a couple of examples of the AI that we've built. And as I mentioned, the ground floor, what every single AI must be built on, is a strong ethical foundation. It is really, really important that we are thoughtful of how we build our AIs, especially if you're going to do something like a closed loop or a self-learning process that you're going to let out into the world and you're going to let it kind of learn on its own. Really have to be thoughtful around how it is that you're going to do that. And so when we thought about the ethical framework and what is it that we wanted to put in place, we came up with 6 core principles across ethics. The first is bias elimination. This is really, really important. There's always going to be, unfortunately, in the core data that we all have, there's already bias in the data. We want to try to look at methods and systems to remove that bias, either by entirely eliminating the use of particular data points as we build our AIs, or by correcting for the bias by looking at the outcomes and adjusting weightings. Really important that we remove bias, because we know that is, just a negative to larger society over the long term. The second principle that we have is around data privacy centric. We operate across 35 different markets around the world at BOLTTECH, some of which have extremely strict privacy regimes, some of which are a little bit looser with the customer data. Right? Our philosophy is always to be very, very careful and very, very thoughtful about how we utilize the data that we're given, that we're entrusted with from our customers and our partners, and how we are able to make sure we don't accidentally expose that data through AI as well, right? Because if you have an AI that can query an entire database, if it's not careful, it'll query the answer to somebody else's question and not mine, right? We also wanted to take a no harm principle. We wanted to make sure that if our AI makes a mistake and trips, that the customer does not get hurt by that, right? Now, if the AI makes a mistake and trips and the customer is benefited by that, we're kind of okay with that. But if the customer is hurt, then we want to be careful. We want to make sure we have the correct checks and balances in play to avoid that from happening. Explainability is another really, really crucial element to how we believe in getting that ethical foundation right. Because if you cannot explain the results of the AI model, you are trusting a black box. You are trusting that black box to be doing things correctly, but it's so hard to actually understand that. And it becomes a particular problem when you think about how you're going to get into a situation where that black box actually makes mistakes. So now I have to trust a black box that 1 in 100 times makes a mistake. That's a 99% accurate AI model. We would all be thrilled with that. How do you trust a faulty black box? You need to remove the black boxness. You need to have the explainability so you can understand. Right? Obviously, we want to reduce hallucinations, particularly in the world of generative AI and what creative things that could happen there. But generally speaking, I see this as two sides of it. Reduce hallucinations is a very Gen AI term, but it also means generally high quality, even if it's more traditional AI and a predictive AI, right? So this is really about having high quality. And finally, we have to monitor that quality, right? You cannot have it so that you have the quality and then you just let it go and allow for drift to enter into the equation. Right? So these are our 6 foundational ethical principles, and let me share with you an example of how this plays out. How do we use these principles when we're building an AI model? And this is an AI model for claims automation. So as an insurance tech provider, we help our insurance partners find out whether or not they should pay a claim, and obviously we built an AI around that. But how did we do it? The first step that we did before we trained the model, before we put any of the data into the model, is we masked the PII, right? So all of that personally identifiable information was masked before that model got put, before that data got put into the model, right? So this is really going to be helping us on the privacy side. Then we built in elements of explainability through the model. Even where we were using, a paragraph description of the claim, and we pulled out that description of the claim and we used it to assess whether or not we think we should pay the claim. We built a model that allows us to highlight all the words and their relative scores that were used to come up with that conclusion item. So you could see, you used the word accident, and that gave it a +2 score, right? And then you used the word mistake, and you used the word oops. Now we start wondering if you've gone too far, right? Because that's what our data was showing. If you 3 times, then it's an issue. And so we kind of have that kind of pattern. We're able to explain it and have it out there. And the next thing we did is we put a human in the loop. So if your claim gets rejected, you are then escalated to a human to review that, right? And only the human can actually click no. The AI actually only has two choices of accept and pay the claim or escalate to a human. And then what we did, in and around that escalation to the human at the same time, is we actually take a share of the claims and pass them direct to the human right around the AI model. And we do that for two reasons. The first reason we do that is because we want to make sure that the humans are actually on their toes. They're not always getting the worst cases in the fraud case and, oh, reject, 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 reject. There's a lot of cases they're getting which are, still need to pay. So they're always still going to need to make a decision each time. They don't get into that lazy human behaviors. But also what it allows us to do is monitor the AI's performance. Because while we went around the AI and sent it straight to the human, we still asked the AI to take a look at it, give it its score, and say whether or not they would have escalated or approved. And that allows us to track whether or not the AI and the humans are starting to drift in their decision makings. So that is how we take these ethical principles and put them into practice in one of our models. The next layer of our factory that we built, the next story after the foundation was built, is technology. Now, I'm not going to pretend for a moment to understand half of the things up on this screen. All right? I am not a tech guy. All right? But what I can tell you is that you need to have the right items and the right pieces in place in order to get things working. I can see it from the point of view of the outcomes, the power that many of these tools have. Right? But I couldn't describe any of them to you. So if you have questions on that, don't submit them. The next thing that you need is you need really good quality and quantity of data. It's fine and dandy, and I really actually think it's great to use LLMs in your organizations. We've built an opportunity for all of our staff to just go into a portal, use GPT in a safe and secure way where none of the data is going to get leaked to the public, right? And just have it our own sort of GPT endpoint with no fancy bells or whistles. It's just a GPT chat. And it's great. And it's very useful. And LLMs can do other very useful things. But if you want to truly build something that is going to create a moat between yourself and your competitor, then you better have your own data that you're differentiating it. And at BOLTTECH, we're pretty lucky. We might not have been around as long as Caro, but we have been around for the last 4 years. And we built a pretty strong platform. We now get 100 million data points every month coming into our funnel, right? This could be information about customers as they're applying for insurance. This could be claims information. This could be information about our partners. There's all sorts of different data points that we have. Now, I'm not saying we put all these data points in one giant AWS bucket and just go crazy on it. No, we have our data privacy with regulations, there's segregations, but the data is there, and it's now something that we can start to use. Right? We can start to build it. So an example of what it could look like in the world as this comes out would be, for example, how are the rates of change of home insurance changing in different states in the U.S., right? And auto insurance, and what are the different patterns, and how high are those prices going? This is actually topical item right now. Might not be the headline thing in the U.S. elections, but it is something that's actually discussed in them, particularly the home insurance, where prices are really going up very, very quickly in some states, and this has become a hot button issue for people whose cost of livings are going up. Right? Another example of the data we could use is understanding trends and patterns of what value of devices are people buying in different parts of Italy. So we could say, okay, in this section of Italy, people are buying lower end devices. Over here, it's higher. Here's some of the trends over time. And this is data that we can model and we could then start to use to help our partners out. We partner with the largest telco in Italy, for example, right? And so we could use this data to help them understand some of their strategies, some of the things they're looking to do. Right? The next layer that you're going to need if you want to be able to produce a great AI factory, right, is you're going to need the right people. The right people is absolutely the most important part. Technology is great, data is must, but people are the difference makers. People are by far the greatest asset that we have. I'm super proud of the team that we've built. And part of our strategy to get the right people is that we actually allow our talent to work from wherever they want. We do not have any requirements on location of where they are. So you can see here like some of the different locations of our data scientists today in the organization is really spread out throughout the world. And this is just about, for us, getting the best person. And that might mean opening the pool to everybody. But it's not just the data scientists. It's not just getting the smartest and best coders. You need to have them interacting and working closely with the business side so that they're able to come up with together jointly the ideas that are going to make the biggest difference for the organization. Right? And then you do need also to have the access for those individuals. Right? So how can they utilize, access the data, get in, get out, build what they need, play around? Really important. Right? If you have too slow processes internally, that can really hamper the pace. Right? And with every factory, you want as many widgets coming out the back of that factory as quickly as possible. Right? So anything that's slowing down the factory is something you have to look at and drive efficiency. And then the final layer of the factory is around selecting what AIs are you going to build, right? Because you can build it, but they won't necessarily use it. They won't necessarily add the value to your organization. So how do you decide what you should do? And we have basically come up with 4 areas in which we believe AIs add value. And sometimes it can be hard to compare these different categories. The first is revenue. Okay, that's clear. Right? AIs that drive revenue, either because we can sell them directly to others or because they enable sales journeys or optimize sales journeys. And we've got a couple of examples of those. Right? The second one is cost optimization, right? Operational efficiency. Right? The claim automation is a perfect example of this, where we're just taking a process that used to be done by a human, we've replaced it with an AI, boom, you get a money save on the back of that, right? Relatively easy. There's a number of other cases in that space. Inventory management, for example, right? Is definitely something that AIs could do better, frankly, than humans can do. Then those 2 are easy to measure, but the next 2 are harder to measure. Decision-making, improved decision-making is a really tough one to put a value towards it. So we built, for example, a forecast bot. This will allow any person within the BOLTTECH organization to forecast any time series that they've got. Right? Maybe they're an operations manager looking after a call center and they want to know their call center volumes for the next 3 months because they want to know how much staffing levels they should be aiming for. Great. Load in your data, get your forecast. Right? You could be a salesperson, you could be anybody in the organization who wants to do a forecast. But how do I put a value on a slightly better forecast? Very hard to value it. And that becomes very difficult when you have limited resources in order to, decide what to do. Right? And finally, customer experience. Customer experience is, of course, another absolutely crucial element to any business. But again, how do you value that? Oh, I saved my customer 3 seconds. Good, good. What's it worth? What's that worth, right? So that becomes a key element in how we're doing it, or a framework. The first two, really easy. The last two, much more art than science. So now turning to the wonderful world of insurance, topic which, unless you're like me and have grown and love the insurance industry, probably not very familiar with the insurance industry and how it works. But essentially, in the insurance value chain, these are some of the kind of key stages across the value chain. And at BOLTTECH, we really believe that artificial intelligence will change the entire elements. Every part of the value chain of insurance will be touched and impacted by artificial intelligence. Indeed, you may end up taking the entire insurance value chain and throwing it in the garbage. Let me ask you this question. If Tesla is driving your car, why should you pay for the car insurance? You're not driving anymore. That just takes the entire car insurance industry and just throws it in the garbage. It replaces it with an entirely different one because of AI. But until that point in time comes, you still have the kind of the value chain, and the whole value chain is getting overridden. Everything from product development, what products you need, usage-based insurance, not possible 20 years ago, right? Absolutely changing what kind of products are available, what kind of data we can use, what kind of pricing we can put into it. How are we doing our sales and marketing is changing massively with AI. Not just how is Google changing their search and putting AI and all these kind of things, but really how are we, and literally right before I came to speak here, I was on a call reviewing an AI that's going to call up customers and offer them insurance, right? Didn't pass the review. Still a lot of work to do. So, AI can do stuff, but it's not there yet always, right? Distribution, sales, we talk a lot about, how this is going to change, how the different products are positioned, how we're going to utilize the Internet of Things to make things very, very different. Underwriting, which is the process of selecting which risks you want to take and which risks you're not willing to take as an insurance company. All of these elements across the board are being impacted by AI. So with the last couple of minutes that I've got, I thought I'd just share with you a couple of different AIs that we've built. I've already talked about the claim automation one, so let me skip past that one. Talk about this one, which is probably one of my personal favorites. We call it Click to Protect. Click to Protect is really trying to solve a problem for the mobile phone insurance industry. And the problem is the following. How do you insure a phone without looking at it? Because you don't know if the screen is broken, right? The phone, the inside of the phone will actually have no idea if there's a crack on the screen. So how did we do it? We came up with the concept of having the phone take a selfie in the mirror. That will then give us an image of the front of the phone. We can then run that through an image recognition, see if there's a crack on it, and offer insurance or not based on that. But what I love about what we've done as we built this out is that actually we have so many different AIs working together as a team to make this work. Let me give you an example of a couple of those AIs that are part of this team. One, going back to our ethical foundations, is a privacy AI that if your face got caught in the reflection, we ask the customer to take it again so we haven't stored an image of your face. Right? We have another one that if the customer has a crack, they might try to cover it with a finger, right? Clever, right? So we have a finger detection module that says, oh, I'm sorry, more than 2% of your screen is covered by a finger. You'll need to retake the photo. Blur detection, right? And a lot of these are not things we thought of ahead of time. They're after we saw the fraud come through. We saw, what is going on? Oh, it's a blurry photo. There's a blurry photo. the AI couldn't figure it out. So now we've had to assess the blurriness of the photo, different AI working together. And it's this teamwork of AIs that makes this product possible, not just a single one. We talked about Internet of Things, and one of the really crucial areas that we work on as a company is an area that we call predict, prevent, and recover. And that is all about going forward and actually trying to stop a claim before it happens. Because that's a win for everybody, right? If you can go in and say, you know what, this claim, you didn't get a flood in your house. That's good for the customer. The insurance company is happy because they don't have to pay the claim. It's a win, right? So we've built out water sensor technology that will give us an alert if there is a drop in water pressure or a leak. That will allow us to send a plumber to the house right away. $200 plumbing bill, not a $20,000 water bill. Everybody wins. And I will skip because the people with the beautiful timestamps are telling me I should stop. So, thank you very much. I appreciate your time. I hope it was something interesting you learned. I look forward to the questions.
Okay, thank you for the wonderful session, engaging. Okay, I got a few questions, just a few questions. Maybe you can have a drink first. Okay. Okay. One, how do you manage data privacy centrally when you are present in so many different countries?
Yeah, it's a good question. So first of all, what we did was we set up a structural approach to data privacy that we have consistent around the globe. And that is around having localized data lakes, and our global data ocean has absolutely no personal information in it. So we sort of set up this approach where, if we ever want to get information globally, cannot have any personal information in it. Right? So that means it's actually, we've given ourselves a difficulty. If my boss asked me, what's the average age of a BOLTTECH customer? Oh gosh, that's a hard one for me to answer practically, because I would have to go into each and every lake to ask it the average age and then bring it all together. So we've limited ourselves. I just can't answer this question if the CEO asks. And that's okay, because we've had to take this data privacy approach. And then we have other things like maskings and permissions and things. So we sort of set up this global framework and structures and then cascaded it down. But we do have to have local data privacy officers in the key markets, especially those ones that have the more stringent regulations, and they provide a local perspective as well.
Okay. Next question. It's a bit long, this question, so maybe I should break this up and also maybe have some prerequisite questions for that before I want this. Okay, the second question is about the explainability, right? Explainability. So when do you look at the explainability of the model? Is it when you are developing the model, or when you also look at the explanations after it's done in production?
The answer is both. The answer is both. So when we're building the model, as the model is going through its approval for deployment stage, the explainability is checked at that stage, right? We will review a bunch of different test cases and the outcomes, and look at the explained reasons from that model to do that. By the way, one thing I didn't mention, we will sacrifice model quality for explainability. So there are cases in which we've had to say, you know what, we are taking a little bit off the accuracy, but we're giving us explainability. And then once it goes live, especially with our checking, our regular checking and making sure there's no drift, if we start to see drift, we're able to pull out that explainability. It is also helpful for us as we do periodic audits into the models.
Okay. The next follow-up question is something that I'm curious about. How do you then achieve that so-called explainability? Is it the choice of the model, or is it a model agnostic technique, sharp values, or how do you do it?
Yeah. I think unfortunately, the answer to that question is I don't know, right? I'm kind of given the explanation of this. I'm given, and I don't know what's the tech and the methodology sitting behind explainability. Apologies.
No problem. Anyway, if you're curious, you can come to attend our courses. We teach that also.
There we go. Okay.
Okay.
Come to NTU.
Yes. Anyway, just a follow-up to actually, that was not the question. That was my question. The next question was, so since you mentioned that we actually have to check the model explanations after production, so what happens if it's a high volume kind of transactions, right? High volume prediction? So wouldn't it take a lot of time for human to go through each and every?
Yeah, we don't check each and every explanation, right? It's more of an audit process where you select out, a random sampling of it, and you take a look to understand it, as opposed to every single explanation is checked, because then the whole efficiency of the AI model it goes away.
Okay, that's about the time that I have. So please, round of applause, please.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay.